Okay, you know how we're always talking about boomers, millennials, and Gen Z? Their habits, their impact, their memes, it's everywhere. But there's this entire generation, kind of sandwiched right in the middle, that often seems completely invisible. So today, we're going to unlock the psychology of Generation X. Yeah, who are we missing? It's Gen X, right? Born roughly between 1965 and 1980. They're often the quiet ones in the office, the ones who basically built a lot of our modern world but don't really feel the need to post about it. And to really get inside their heads, you have to go back to the unique environment that shaped them as kids. And this whole story, it really starts with something called the latchkey kid phenomenon. A kid who comes home from school to a totally empty house because their parents are still at work. Now, this wasn't just some quirky 80s movie trope. For Gen X, this was a foundational experience. It's what shaped their psychology from the ground up. And the scale of this was just massive. I mean, get this, by 1984, researchers found that around 7 million children were regularly unsupervised after school. This wasn't the exception. For so many, it was just the rule. Coming home, letting yourself in, and being totally alone for hours, that was just normal. And what does an experience like that drill into you? Well, a really powerful lesson. You have to rely on yourself. That empty house taught them that actions have immediate, direct consequences. If you forgot your key, you were locked out. Simple as that. If you didn't make yourself a snack, you went hungry. There was literally no one there to fix it for you. There's actually a psychological term for this, a high contingency environment. All that really means is your brain learns to connect an action and its outcome in real time with zero buffer. This basically trained the Gen X brain to think 3 steps ahead, to anticipate problems, and to solve them all by themselves. Because, well, what other choice did they have? Now, this intense self-reliance didn't just pop up in a vacuum. Nope, it was paired with a front row seat to watching all the institutions their parents had trusted just completely fail. And that led to a worldview rooted in some serious realism and skepticism. I mean, just think about what they saw growing up. The whole idea of a stable, lifelong marriage, that was shattered by soaring divorce rates. The promise of a job for life, that evaporated as they watched their own parents get laid off during corporate downsizing. And their trust in authority was just eroded by everything from Watergate to the AIDS crisis. The message was loud and clear. Following the rules doesn't guarantee you a thing. So this worldview, it isn't about just being negative for the sake of it. Psychologists actually call it defensive pessimism, and it's a survival strategy. It's where you hope for the best, of course, but you mentally prepare for the absolute worst, because your own experience has taught you that the rug can and often will be pulled right out from under you. So how do you cope with that kind of constant uncertainty? You build up some emotional armor. For Gen X, irony and sarcasm became a shield. I mean, when you're growing up under the shadow of the Cold War, doing duck and cover drills at school, you learn to keep things at arm's length. You crack a joke to deflect, to laugh it off before it can really sting.
And this pattern of instability, it was especially true when it came to money. First, they see their parents get laid off in the 80s. Then, just as the youngest of them were starting their careers, the dot-com bubble bursts. And as the oldest were hitting their peak earning years, bam, the 2008 global financial crisis wipes out savings and jobs. This constant disruption hammered home one core belief: absolutely nothing is permanent.
All this constant instability forged a very, very distinct work ethic. It wasn't built in some fancy internship. It was built on paper routes at 5 in the morning, in greasy fast food kitchens, and behind cash registers where you had to make change in your head fast. And that led to this fundamental shift. See, they watched how company loyalty kind of destroyed their parents' generation. So they didn't put their faith in a corporation. They put it in themselves. Their loyalty isn't to a logo on a building. It's to their own competence. To them, the only real job security is being so skilled, so valuable, that you're indispensable. So this creates this really fascinating paradox in the workplace. Gen Xers are radically independent. They will almost never, ever ask for help because they've been figuring things out on their own since they were 8 years old. But if you need help, they are often the very first to show up, do the work, and then just disappear without needing any credit or acknowledgement. And this all ties back to their relationship with authority. It's actually pretty simple. They respect competence, not titles. If you've earned your position and you actually know what you're doing, they will follow you anywhere. But if you're just a person in a suit who can't back it up with skill, They have zero patience. They just watched incompetent authority fail them way too many times as kids. And that brings us to the really unique position in history. You can think of Gen X as the analog bridge. Why? Because they are the last generation to have a childhood and an adolescence completely 100% untouched by the internet and social media. So for them, privacy isn't some setting you have to adjust. It's the default state of being. When they made a mistake, it was just a private, awkward memory, not some viral video that follows you forever. That's why social media can feel way more risky than exciting to them. It's not that they're anti-tech, it's that they learned a core lesson early on. The less people know about you, the safer you are. And hey, think about information itself. Before Google, knowledge had a physical cost. It meant hours and hours in a library, digging through card catalogs, hunting for one specific piece of data. And because that information took so much effort to find, cognitive psychologists say it became more deeply encoded in their memory. It stuck. So you put all this together and it places them in this essential but often invisible role. They are the bridge generation. They connect the analog world they grew up in and the digital one they actually helped build. They're just quietly holding things together, translating between generations, and expecting pretty much nothing in return. And that kind of leaves us with a final thought, right? Gen X might be the last generation that truly gets what it means to be bored, to be alone with your own thoughts, to solve a problem without an immediate answer from the internet. So in our world of constant connection and hypervisibility, you have to ask, what have we lost by losing their perspective on solitude?